Hello and welcome to Clay Creators. Today we are building our version of Elsa from the film Frozen, and hopefully we can get your model looking something like this towards the end. We'll need our measuring spoons, creator cards and tools, our pots of clay, and if at all possible an airtight container, anything with a seal or a lid like a lunchbox or Tupperware to help keep the clay fresh during the build. Now before we get started, I'm going to go over the key facts. And I know a lot of you are probably massive Frozen fans and you know a lot of this already, but have a listen just in case there's something new. And again, just in case Mum and Dad want to quiz you later on, you'll have all the facts there ready to go. Okay, so fact number one. Arendelle is the fictional kingdom where Frozen is set. Fact number two. 5 of the main characters are Elsa, Anna, Olaf, Kristoff and Hans. Fact number 3. The Ice Queen, or Elsa, was originally planned to be the villain or the bad guy in the film, but basically had a massive change before the film was released, and they chose to put them on the good, put her on the good side, should I say. Finally, fact number 4, relating back to fact number 3. One of the big reasons for that change was the famous song "Let It Go." After that song was created, the film creators decided that Elsa was going to be on the good side. Okay, let's start by mixing our turquoise. It's going to be quite a big chunk of clay to start off with, and then we'll add to that later on throughout the build. Okay, so we're going to need our spoons, and we're going to start with our white clay. And like I said, we're going to make 3 measurements of this white clay. We're going to go with a number 5, a number 4, and a number 1 spoon of white clay. So remember, when you're filling your spoons up, nice and level across the top, not over the top too much and not too under the level there. So filling up, I say number 5 spoon, number 4 and a number 1. So nice and level, not too much. And finally number 1. Okay, we'll also need yellow and blue, but whilst we're not using the white, lid on, back in the pot, close it all up, keep it nice and fresh. Yellow will be a number 1 spoon, so just a little bit of yellow. Again, putting away into the pot, keeping it nice and fresh. Blue clay, and this time we are going to go with a number 2, a number 1, and then onto the creator card. So start with the spoons, we'll go number 2 and a number 1 measurement. Number 2 and a number 1. Okay. And like I say, onto the creator card where we're going to do a measurement using the 1 centimeter circle. So this time you snap off a bit of clay, roll it into a ball, and that ball, once it's on that circle, you still need to be able to see the outline of the circle. So that one's a bit too big, take a little off. So remember, don't flatten it down, don't squish it, it's got to be a ball, and you still need to be able to see the outline. Fantastic. Again, clay away, keep it nice and fresh. Okay, now I've got our measurements. We can put all 3 colours together and give that a mix. This will give us our turquoise. And from this turquoise, we're going to use this to make the main body, and we'll have a little bit left over for her cloak. So make sure all those colours are nicely blended and there's nothing left. You should have a nice turquoise. Okay, from here, like I said, we're going to do the body first of all, so we're going to measure out, again using our spoons, and we're going to need 2 number 5 measurements of this turquoise. So if we fill the spoon up nice and level again, so 1, 2, so I've got my 2 number 5s and some left over. Just whilst we do that, I'm going to put my leftover clay into my airtight container. And I'm just going to get these together now. So give these a stretch, get those two measurements back together, give it a stretch, give it a roll, and we need to start with a nice, smooth, round ball. Okay, so I'm going to use my hands. I'll get a nice smooth finish there. You may want to use your workstation or your work surface. Depends on what works best for you, but you want to start off at a starting point with a nice, smooth, round ball. Okay, and once we've got that, we're going to roll this into kind of a slight cone shape for the body. Okay, now all we're going to do is gently roll with our hands onto the surface. Okay, you're going to gently, slightly change the shape of the ball into more of a egg shape, starting to anyway, and then all we're going to do is kind of focus on one end rather than being in the middle trying to do it evenly. We're going to go towards one end. We're going to slowly keep the pressure on at one end rather than all the way along, and as you can see, I'm starting to change the shape a little bit now. So again, just keeping my hand at one end, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to roll this so we're looking for this sort of shape once you're finished. Okay, now we're going to make it a little longer because as it dries and as the clay, as we put the head on and the arms on, it's eventually going to shrink slightly. Okay, so if you want to measure onto your credit card, you see the ruler on the back. As I've rolled this out, I'm rolling this out and I'm looking for around about 6 centimeters. It may look a little bit long at the moment, so it's around about 6 centimeters for the time being. And all I'm going to do is gently give it a little press down. So it's going to kind of flatten the bottom. Okay, same, I'm going to flip it over, just use my workstation to give it a little bit of a flatter top as well. Again, just gently try and make it nice and even. Not too much. So again, even now I've done that, I've dropped down below. So I'm just going to give it another little gentle roll, just to stretch it out a little bit. Okay, so we should be looking at something that looks like this now. Okay. I'm going to put that into the airtight container and bring out the rest of that turquoise. So as you put it in, leave them upright, standing up. Now what we're going to do with the rest of this turquoise, we're going to kind of prepare the cloak. Okay, so it's a little bit light at the moment, so we're going to add some more blue. Now with the cloak though, we're going to try and get the effect of it's a mixed kind of pattern. So what we're going to do, we're only going to part mix this. So we're going to add a bit of blue and we're only going to part mix. We're not going to go all the way until the colour, as in that blue, disappears. So then you'll get some swirls and some marbly effect through that. Okay, so using all this, we're going to add 1 centimetre of more blue. So again, back to your creator card, I'm going to use that 1 centimetre again. So just a small amount of blue. And like I say, we're going to add that, but only partly add. Okay, don't worry if you go too far. It's not a problem if you do end up with it completely mixed, but I'm going to literally just go a couple of folds and then roll it into a ball. And hopefully, see, I'm going to do a little bit more. You should get some nice swirls through that. Okay, you might not be able to pick up on the camera, but I've got a few. If you're not happy with that, add a touch more blue. So if you weren't, I'd take a little tiny pinch more, maybe only 0.5. Add that, and again, just give it another quick slight roll through. Maybe you'll be able to get more of a swirly effect. Okay. Now we're going to shape this so it's ready to kind of go onto the back. Now, if I bring the original version along, you can see it kind of comes along, sits across the back. Okay, so there's no right or wrong with the cloak really. All we need to do is roll it out and flatten it. Now we can do this now, you can wait until later on. We're going to do it now and I'm going to leave it in my airtight container ready to go so we can add it later on. So all I'm going to do, back into my starting position, back into my smooth round ball, I'm going to just roll this out into a sausage, trying to make it nice and even. And like I say, it's kind of a bit of feel. I'm going to flatten this by pressing it out. Okay, and we're going to stretch it out a little. Use my tool to kind of flatten out the edges if I want to. Remember, the work surface is going to give you a very nice flat one side, so I've flattened it out. I'm now very thin. Okay, I've turned it over. Now again, you don't have to have flat sides. You might want curved. You might want to cut into it a little bit. It's completely up to you. Now what I'm trying to do is at the top, at the back, it's going to be a little bit thinner at the top. So I'm going to imagine, if you can see, this top end is going to be the part that attaches to the shoulders. So it's a little bit narrower at the top there. But again, there's no real right or wrong. We're looking for something like this. Okay. And I'm going to put that into my airtight container now. I'm going to leave it in there ready to go for when it's time to put on. We'll basically put it on like so. Okay, so into my airtight container, and we're going to go on to the next colour that we need to mix. So just place that nice and flat. And now what we're going to do, we're going to do the light blue, which we'll use on our arms and a little bit around the neck and collar. Okay, so again, back to white and blue. This time we are going to start with white. Sorry, I've got a little bit of clay in the way. Back to our spoons, we are going to go with a number 1 of white. Oops. And a 1 centimetre measurement on your creator card as well. So this time when you're looking at the creator card and you're putting the white ball, I'm going to break the rules slightly. So you know how I said you always need to see the outline of the circle. This time, if it's slightly bigger, it's absolutely fine. So again, I've put my creator card down, my ball's over it, and if I'm looking over the top, I can't quite see. But again, I know I'm close, it's just slightly bigger. So that's fine. I'm just making sure that you're going to have enough clay at the end there. Okay, so put those 2 white balls together. And the blue that we're going to do is going to be just a tiny little pinch of blue. Okay, so you take your blue, and I'm going to take a tiny, tiny bit. Now, it's kind of the 0.5 measurement on your card. So the smallest ball. If it's better to be less than more at the moment. So if you've got a tiny, tiny ball and we add this, it's better to be very, very light blue. If it's too dark, then you'll have to start again. So I'm going to put those 2 together. I'm going to give them a mix. Now we should be getting a very, 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 very light blue. Again, if you've put the tiniest amount in and it's hardly changed, take a tiny, tiny pinch more and just gradually add little bits of blue. Okay. So as you can see, mine's only slightly changed, but that's what we're going with. We're going for a very, very light blue. Okay. Now, the first measurement and the first part that we're going to do with this is the rim around the top of the dress. Okay. So once this is all mixed, all the colours are mixed through, we're going to take a measurement off and then we're going to save some more into the airtight container. So we're going to go with, again, onto your creator card, and we need a 1 centimetre measurement. So again, this time back to the proper measurement where you can still see the outline. And if you want to put the rest into your airtight container for the time being, try not to let it touch any of the other parts that are in there. And all we're going to do with this, we're going to turn this into a tiny little thin disc. Okay, so give it a stretch, back to our starting position, nice smooth round ball if you can. And like I say, all we're going to do then is press down, and we're going to make it into a really flat disc, and it's going to sit on the top of the dress. So if you can press down, just giving it a nice flat. Now, ideally, if possible, I'll explain this in a second. So we're looking for a tiny little disc. Press down nice and even if you can get it. Okay. Now, ideally, what I was going to say was that there's a slight, excuse me, dent in the very middle. So the rims may be slightly higher if you can get that. It's not a major problem if you can't, or if you don't quite understand what I'm saying. This is just because this is going to go around the inside, and then we're going to put a little bit of flesh or skin colour in the top, and it has a better effect if it's a little bit of a dent in the very middle. So what we'll do, we're going to put that onto the body now. So this is going to go right on the very top. Now, you'll see what I mean. So nicely right on the very top. Oops. Trying to get it right in the middle. And just give it a gentle press down. And there we go. Okay, so it's on the top. Okay. Like I say, we're going to then add onto the top of this and keep adding. So I'm going to put this back into the airtight container for the time being. And we're going to go on to our next mix, which is going to be the skin or the flesh colour. Okay. Now Elsa's very, not pale, but she's a light skin, so we're looking for a lighter colour, which means we're not going to add too much red. We don't want her skin to be too pinky. Okay, so the mix we're going to go with, again, a good chunk of white. We're going to use our spoons to start off with. And we're going to go for a number 3, a number 1, and another number 1 actually, sorry. So number 3 and 2 number 1s of white. 3. Ooh. Okay, so then onto a yellow, and the yellow is, bear with me, sorry, another number 1. So just a small amount of yellow, and then the red is going to be a tiny pinch. So similar to what the we used with the blue kind of measurement, that tiny pinch that we did, we're going to do the same again. So again, like I said before, we're trying not to make the skin too pinky. So it really is just a tiny pinch to start off with, at 0.5 if that, and we'll see. I know it looks really small amount at the moment, but once it's mixed you'll be able to see if you want to add a touch more red or not. Okay, so get them together, give them a good mix, and this will be hands, head, ears and nose. There should be enough here for everything there. Like I say, as you mix, wait until it's fully mixed before you decide whether you want to add any more pink. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm not going to add any more red, so we should have a nice fleshy kind of colour. Okay, so like I say, this is going to be measured out between the head, the ears, nose and the hands. Okay, but we'll get to that measurement later on. What we are going to do though, sorry I forgot, there's a bit here for the chest. So this is the bit that we're going to put on top of that the blue rim that we put onto the dress a minute ago. Okay, so it's just going to be a small measurement again. This is going to be again onto the 1 centimeter measurement on your creator card, but like we did before where we did a bigger 1 centimeter and it was fine to be over, this time it needs to be quite a small 1 centimeter, so don't go too big on this. Okay, if it's a little bit less than that outline, it'll be perfect. So we're looking for a tiny little ball like this. Just while we shape this, put again your flesh colour out the way in the corner. And again, similar to what we did with the rim of the dress, that light blue that we did, we're just going to press this down slightly, turn it into a little disc. This time though, don't go quite as flat to start off with. So I've just pressed it down slightly. Got a little bit of a thicker disc this time. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to put this onto the top of there, and you want to kind of try and have this similar sort of shape as that blue disc, but it's slightly smaller, so it's going to go on the inside. So if I can show you, so at the moment I can see that this is going to sit on the top and it's going to be quite a bit smaller, so I'm going to just press it down a little bit more. And it should just be a little bit smaller all the way around on that blue rim. Okay, so we should now have that kind of effect from the top. Okay. Don't worry if it's not exact. We're going to put arms and a cloak on, and we'll be able to tidy things up a little bit with that later on. So I'm happy. There we go. For the time being. Again, we're going to put that back into our airtight container. We're going to put the arms on next, and then we'll put the cloak on. So whilst we're doing the arms, I'll get that standing upright. So the arms is going to be the pale blue, so the very light blue that we mixed. I'm going to take that back out. Okay, and the arms, again, back to the creator card. We're only going to be using the 1 centimeter measurement again. So proper measurements again, this time no smaller, larger, so dead on this time where you can still see the outline. Okay, 1 and 2, so 2 measurements for the 2 arms. We're also going to do the hands at the same time. So you've got a little bit of light blue left over. Swap that over for the skin or flesh colour. And just quickly with this, all we're going to do now is the 0.5 measurement. So sticking on the creator card, 0.5, maybe a smidge bigger if you have to. I know it's tricky to get all the way down to that 0.5. So if it's slightly bigger, it's not a problem, but as long as your hands are pretty much the same size, it will be okay. Brilliant. Clay away again for the time being. Okay. Now, all we're going to do with these, we're going to give them a little roll out and then add the hands on afterwards. Okay, so you may want to turn over, have your ruler there ready to go. It's not exact, it's kind of a rough idea. Like I say, you don't have to have these exactly the same. So I'm going to give them a gentle roll from the starting ball. I'm just going to roll them slightly. And as long as your arms are about the same length, you'll get the right effect, okay? So now I can see right now that my arms are a little bit off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a little bit more of my spare light blue clay. My measuring must have been off. So I'm going to add a touch more on them both. Just a smidge, but like I say, as long as your arms are the same size as each other, you'll be okay. So I've added just a touch more on each. And again, I'm going to get them back to that nice smooth round ball to start off with. So the length we're looking for is around about 2.5 to 3 centimeters. So right now I'm just over 2.5, so perfect. And these are going to stretch out a little bit because what we're going to do at the top, we're going to flatten one end, only slightly. So if you imagine the hand will be going at one end, the other end where the shoulder is, all I'm going to do is give it a gentle pinch at the very top and try and give it a flatter top, just where the shoulder goes. So if I can bring this to the camera, you can see it, I've kind of just pinched it in a little bit. Okay, so again, kind of give it a flat top if you can, point the corners. Again, a little bit tricky, but don't worry too much, it's just to help it kind of go onto the model. At the other end, you want to just fasten the little hands on. Now you can put some detail on the hands if you want. I will leave them just as little balls for the time being. If you wish to add hand detail, you can do. But I would suggest if you do want to do that, I would do that now before the clay dries out, because then you won't be able to add anything on later on once they're dried. So we should have 2 arms and 2 hands fastened together. And we'll add them onto the body now. Now before we get sticking on, try and be nice and careful with this now. Those flatter parts at the top that we just did are the bits that's going to fasten on to onto the shoulder, but what you're trying to do is get the flat part level with the flesh colour on the top. Okay, so it's going to be sitting on the light blue, but you kind of want it to be level and flat on that blue, just touching the flesh colour. So once I've done it, I'll show you. I'll just use my tool to kind of flatten down, keep it nice and level on one side. So just coming on and touching. So they are just touching. Okay. So we should have this kind of effect now. Okay. So we're going to put them back into the airtight container now. Oh, you know what? No. You know what we're going to do? We're going to add the cloak on to tidy that up at the back now. So before we get onto the head, we're going to take the cloak out that we got ready earlier on. And onto the back then. So remember how we'd made the pointy bit or the light bit at the top? This is the bit that's going to go up around the shoulders. This time this is going to just kind of touch around about that flesh colour at the top. And on the light blue rim, and we just gently wrap it round. Oops. Bring it down the back, and once you've got it in place, you can press down a little bit more down the back and put it onto the workstation or the work surface, and it'll help keep Elsa upright. We should have that kind of effect at the back. Okay, so once you are at this stage, again, put it back into the airtight container and get the lid on. Okay, it's time to start working on the head, and the really important part, the hair. The effect of the hair is the bit that really makes Elsa stand out here. Okay, so what we're going to do before we shape the head's not a tricky one, it's just a quick measurement and then roll into ball. But what I want to do, I'm going to do the eyes and the mouth first. Now the eyes can be a little bit tricky, but because they're so small, but at the same time on the head we want them to still kind of look big. So we're going to start with white. Now again, you may want to do your eyes slightly different, it's completely up to you, it's absolutely fine. I will run you through how we do it, and if you want to do any tweaks, it's absolutely fine, it's up to you. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to use the 0.5 measurement on the creator card with a pinch of white, and that's going to be my guide. Now the eyes, like I say, we're going to try and get them as close to Elsa's as possible. Very tricky, like I say, with it being so small. So we're only starting off with a tiny white ball. Okay, so I will split this in half, and that's going to be the two eyes at the back. Sorry, at the starting point, the two white parts of the eye. Okay, so even them, and I'm going to try and roll them into kind of a very slight sausage. I don't want them round, I want them a little bit longer than round, okay? And then I'm going to press them down and flatten them out a little, okay? Now, don't worry about them being super flat right now, because as we add to it, it'll flatten out, and once we add to the head as well, okay? So once we've done that, I'm going to turn our leftover light blue into a little bit of a different color again for our eyes, okay? So I've got a little bit of light blue left. I'm going to take a pinch of that. Now, this part of the eye, you only need a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So I'm going to take a pinch of this. Again, no real measurement. I've just taken a pinch of that. Light blue, you can put away again. You can use that with free play if you want later on. And all I'm going to do now is going to take an even smaller pinch of regular blue. And I'm just going to add that to that blue. Give it a little mix, but again only part mix. I'm going to leave that. I don't want it to go fully, okay? And I'm going to take a little tiny, this is when we get really small now, tiny little cut off, okay? And roll that out. I'm going to do the same again. Again, what we're trying to do here is get each little cut measurement roughly the same size. So I've got two tiny little measurements here, and I'm going to do the same as I did before. I'm going to roll them very, very slightly, press them down. And this time I'm going to try and put this blue at one end of the white that we've already done, very carefully. Now if you want her to look one way, you'll need them both on one side. If you want them right in the middle, it's up to you. I'm going to have a kind of look in one way, so I'm going to put them both at the same point on each side, if I can. And then to finish off the eye, all we're going to do is add an even smaller, tiny pinch of black clay. So I am talking absolutely minute amount of black clay. So I've got that, and I'm going to just cut a tiny bit. Again, if you don't want to go this far down, it's fine. You don't have to do exactly every step that we're doing, okay? So I've gone really small. On the other hand, you could ask your guide or helper that's with you today to give you a little help with this bit. So I've gone so small you probably won't be able to see on camera. So I've got my eyes done. And what we're going to do, I'm going to do the head quickly now though. So we want a little bit of this flesh colour left over. So the measurement for the head is, back to the spoons, we need a number 3 and a number 1 of spoons. So we've got number 3 and number 1. And another number 1 off the, 1 centimetre off the creator card, a proper measurement, leaving us with a little bit of clay left over. Put this away again into our airtight container. And again, another little bit of clay for free playtime if you need it. Get the head shaped, so give it a quick stretch again, freshen the clay up and roll it into a nice smooth round ball. Okay, and where you want to be putting the eyes, obviously you can put the eyes, so I'm going to work on this, the bit sticking up, sorry. So obviously you're going to get a little flat point where it's resting on your workstation or work surface. It's not a problem. If there's a little flat bit at the back, it's not a problem at all, because the hair is going to go over there and hide that anyway. So if you want to go ahead and put your eyes on, nice and careful, give them a little flatten down. At this point, it's a good idea to get a little nose on in between and a mouth. Now the mouth can be very tricky because ideally you want it to be smiling. Nose, just a tiny pinch, probably smaller than 0.5. We just do a little tiny ball and put it on in between the eyes. Gentle push it on. And like I say, with the mouth, trying to make it smile, make her smile. So we're going to take a tiny pinch of red again. Lots of small amounts today. Smaller than 0.5 if possible. And all we're going to do, roll that into a little sausage tic-tac shape again. And if you can try and curve the edges slightly, giving her a smile, that'd be perfect. But again, I appreciate that's very tricky. You may need a little help with that. And then get that smile onto the head. Oh, now I'm dropping everywhere. Okay. Curve the edges a little. Okay, I've got a kind of smile. So we should have a head that looks something like this now, hopefully. Right, we'll put that back into the airtight container. We won't worry about the ears right now, because depending on how you do the hair and how you get the hair to sit on, you might not need to do ears in the right place, which will kind of make sense shortly. So let's say we're going to mix the hair now. We're nearly finished. The hair we're going to mix again mainly white, okay, with a tiny pinch of yellow. So we'll go back to our spoons. We're going to start with a number 3 spoon and a number 1 again. So number 3 and number 1. And once more, we're also going to take a 1 centimeter measurement off the creator card. A bit too big, so a proper measurement. Okay. And like I say, just a small bit of yellow, and the yellow, again, back to the creator card, 1 centimeter measurement. Okay. Put those all together, give them a mix through, and we'll get a very light yellow. So the hair's kind of done in 2 stages. You've got the main part across the top of the head, and then a little ponytail, which is braided. So the way that we'll do, I'll show you how we're going to do that shortly. Okay. Okay. So we should be looking nice, light yellow. Okay. So the hair, like I say, is going to be split into 2 sections, and the hair is going to be, use a number 1 spoon measurement, which is going to be our tail, and this is going to be the main part of the head, so we'll just leave that to the side. What we're going to do with this part, split this in half roughly, so we should end up with 2 even-ish balls. So don't worry if they aren't exact. It's not essential that they are exact, but if they're close, and then we're going to just roll them out into little sausages, nice and even all the way along if you can. And again, the measurements don't have to be exact, but as a guide, we are looking for something around about 3.5 to 4 centimeters. And then all we'll do is put those 2 next to each other, give them a little press together. So we should at this point be something like this. And then all we're going to do is gently give them a twist, okay? As you gently twist, you should get a nice little twirly effect all the way along the hair. So you should end up with this effect. And at one end, if you just want to press one end, you know that end will then be the bit that goes into the main part of the hair, and we're just going to leave that to the side. Okay, so onto the main bulk part of the hair. Give it a stretch. We'll start off with a nice smooth round ball again. Now this goes down. This is a little bit of arty, bit of your impersonation, of a bit of your ideas on the hair. Okay, so like I say, all we're going to do is flatten this out slightly, and then it's a little bit of shaping. Okay, so I'll pinch the front a little bit. I want to make the front a little bit flatter. I'm going to round it a little bit, but that's when I want to start getting details in there. So I'm going to take my tool and I'm going to cut into the hair, especially around the front. You want to dig in a little bit, give the hair a little bit of a look. So digging in, giving it this kind of effect at the moment, and bring it round. Okay, then you can add your ponytail, kind of just pinch it in at the back, so you should have, and all we're going to do is put this on, bring the ponytail over her shoulder and curve it round. So if you want to get the rest of your model together, we'll take the body and the head. If you want to add the head first, then you'll have a good space. And let's say then get the ponytail coming round over the shoulder and just gently overhead. And just tidy her up a little bit. So we should have something like this. Now I actually do have room for a little ear, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of that flesh and I just gently put a little ear on one side. So the flesh colour, it's going to be a tiny pinch into a little ball. Now you might be able to get this on both sides. You may want to just do one side, it's completely due, or you may have put it in a position where there's not really room for anything. And again, everybody's model might be slightly different in this aspect. So I've got a little bit of room there. I'm going to just gently pop another one in there. Hopefully you'll have a very successful Elsa, which you are happy with. Okay, over to free play time now. So any of the extra clay that you've got left over, you're more than welcome to use. Free play, we normally use one number 3 spoon of every colour. Try and build something alongside. I don't know, you may want to do another character, you may want to do Olaf, you may want to do Sven. It's completely up to you. Use your imagination, try and build alongside, do some of your own work. So like I say, a number 3 spoon of every colour if you need to. If you are running low on clay, head over to claycreators.com/shop to order a refill. Same place if you want to be downloading our activity sheets and word searches and things. And again, if you found the spoons are not too easy, but you might be ready to try and move up to level 2, key stage 2, and try using our scales for the measuring. Again, head over to claycreators.com/shop to order a set of scales. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.